You open this door with the key of reason. Beyond it is another dimension. A dimension of truth. A dimension of freedom. A dimension of joy. You're moving into the land of both the ideal and the real, of the possible and the actual. You've just crossed over into the capitalist corner.
Where reason meets reality, welcome to the capitalist corner.
Yes, indeed. Where reason meets reality, the capitalist corner. I'm your host, Michael Liebowitz, joined today by the lovely, as always, Persephone. And we have to wish a very, very happy birthday to one Mark Ross Pellegrino. I believe he turns 39 today. So we will wish him a happy birthday. We hope he's watching. He better be watching. Or if he's not watching, hopefully he'll watch the rerun or the repeat or the recorded version, however you wish to describe it. Rational Egoist, same thing. My interview with Sheldon Richman. Tomorrow I will be interviewing Nikos Soterokopoulos. That interview will be out sometime tomorrow afternoon or evening on The Rational Egoist. And of course today, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, Everyday Ethics. And then at 3:15 p.m. Eastern Time, our brand new show, Crime, Corrections, and Culture, which I am having an absolute blast doing, and I hope Persephone is as well. So how goes it today, Persephone?
It was going great until I read all of the articles that you sent me, and then all of a sudden it was crap again.
Okay, well, that's good. So my producer slash co-host slash friend says that the articles I send her are crap. $2 from Jenna Kleem with the fire logo there. Thank you so much, Jenna. Really appreciate it. And that should serve as a reminder that we very much enjoy super chats and super stickers on this program. But also, please, yes, we are, Ian. But please also like, share, and subscribe. What do you want to talk about first? Do you want to do Viktor Orbán first? Do you want to do the criminal justice stuff first? I'm going to leave it up to my wonderful co-host.
No, let's do Viktor Orbán.
Okay, we're going to do Viktor Orbán. So our, what do I want to call him here? Our vice president, let's just go, our distinguished vice president is over in Hungary, and he says that we have got to get Viktor Orbán reelected as Prime Minister of Hungary, don't we? We've got a lot of this sort of stuff. Let me see if I can't find this. Trump called into a Budapest rally headlined by J.D. Vance. He stated, I'm a big fan of Viktor. I'm with him all the way. He's called him a friend, a very powerful man. We've got... let's see what else. Trump also said he's a fantastic man, very powerful and beloved. J.D. Vance says the president loves you. Orbán was a keynote speaker at the Conservative Political Action Conference in 2022 and 2023. So it got me, I was thinking about this Viktor Orbán guy, and I said, well, what's he all about? I hear a lot about him in the news, and I read about him a lot. So I looked him up, and, one of the first things that comes to mind is his view of Putin. And so, Orbán has a cordial relationship with Putin. He praises Putin, on a semi-regular basis, pals with him, that sort of thing. So, what is this guy really about? Now, he was prime minister early on. Well, but let's go before he was a prime minister. He actually graduated from the University of Oxford, where he studied under the Soros Foundation, paid for it, scholarship. He's, studied political philosophy. He also, I believe, it was the prime minister starting, I think, in 1998 through 2002. So he was, into politics back then. He was into, in his first term anyway, he was into promoting the free market, free market economics coming out of the Cold War. So that was his thing then. But as times have changed, he's become more and more encouraging, let us say, of Christianity. Says he wants to protect Christian nationalism or the Christian character of Europe and Christian identity. He's they're his party here, the Fidesz. I hope I'm pronouncing that properly. I may not be, but they've got a junior electoral partner, the Christian Democratic Party. They've introduced a tax on advertising revenue. Seems to be a little bit of a shot at the, securing him at the media to secure himself, electoral significance. He calls himself an illiberal. He cited Russia, China, and Turkey as examples to emulate. He's a nationalist. He does a lot of the stuff that we see here, preaching a lot against Islam and immigrants, that sort of thing. I guess he's also, according to one of these sources I have in here that are going to be available to you, equated homosexuality with pedophilia. And now the thing that I found very interesting, to say the least. So, according to Encyclopedia Britannica, in late March 2020, as the deadly COVID-19 pandemic sweeping the world began to claim lives in Hungary, Parliament passed a bill that gave Orbán the emergency power to rule by decree, ostensibly to better address the health crisis confronting the country. The law, passed by the Fidesz-controlled parliament over the strenuous objections of the opposition, suspended elections, mandated stringent penalties for spreading false news, and contained no end for Orbán's expanded powers. But he, said at the time, when this emergency ends, we will give back all powers without exception. I thought that the conservatives really hated the expanded COVID stuff, but maybe not. Maybe that's not the case. He thinks that Christianity is the best defense against the organization of Europe into a supernatural empire. So that's his jam. In 2010, he oversaw a new constitution laden with references to God, Christianity, and traditional family and values. He's stacked the constitutional court with loyalists. His government systematically dismantled independent media. He's accused of rigging the electoral system. He's had attacks on civil society, LGBTQ rights. So the question, I guess, kind of is, he also, by the way, and this may be a key, supports support or says he believes Trump's claims that the election of 2020 was stolen from him, stolen from Trump, that is. Section 3, Article 1, no, that's a different thing. Never mind. So what I did, it seems ridiculous to me that we would have our vice president and president supporting this guy. Although, in Persephone, can you look this up because I forgot to? I want to know if post-liberals like Patrick Deneen praise Orbán. So are the post-liberals in support of Viktor Orbán? But anyway, so I asked, I don't just want, how do I put this? I don't just want to have my own opinions on this. So I did ask Grok to come up with an argument. I said, this was the actual request I gave to Grok, give a robust but accurate argument for why the U.S. should support Viktor Orbán. So Grok said, because American foreign policy must prioritize concrete national interests, secure borders, national sovereignty, demographic vitality, and a pragmatic NATO alliance over abstract lectures about democratic norms or ideological conformity. Hungary under Orbán has delivered results on these fronts in ways that directly benefit the United States, even as it defies EU orthodoxy. So then I actually said, I asked Grok, is this just realpolitik? To which Grok said, yes, this is realpolitik. So, Realpolitik comes from Germany, and it is a political philosophy and approach to statecraft that prioritizes practical power considerations over moral principles, ideological commitments, or abstract theories of justice. The term is German, combining real, meaning practical or actual, with politic, meaning politics, and was coined in the 19th century, associated most closely with the Prussian statesman Otto von Bismarck. You can read all about that in our stuff, but my question to the audience is, do you think that we should form alliances based on countries who share our values and the types of things that we want to fight for, or should it be based on real politics? Should we, for instance, cozy up to the Saudi Arabians, even given their history, given the totalitarianism? Should we keep supporting, Viktor Orbán, and evidently they're campaigning for him over there? Now, according to Reason Magazine and Persephone, did you find the stuff I asked for by any chance on Patrick?
Yeah, I did. Do you want me to send it to you? Because Deneen has actually publicly praised him.
That's what I wanted to know. So include that with the article. So do you have a good quote from Deneen?
Do I have a good quote from Deneen? No, I don't. But I can find one.
That'd be a great thing. So this article, okay, I'm looking for this through here. Okay, so right now, all this praise for Viktor Orbán in Hungary. So right now, Hungary, their economy evidently led all Central European countries out of the post-communist starting gate. It now languishes in the per capita second tier, with once devastated Romania. It's the 17th largest economy in the 27-member European Union, despite having the 13th largest population. None of these numbers is obscure, even to a vice president. It's that Vance and other American Orbanistas define prosperity differently. What they like, evidently about this guy is he's a nationalist, he's anti-immigrant, anti-LGBTQ. I don't think, I'm going to answer that question that I put earlier, is I don't think that the United States ought to be I can't. That's I don't even know how you come up with that. I'm trying. I want to be nice to the audience. I do. But how is this a serious question? Should Deneen decide our foreign policy by invalidating any country he praises? Yes, because that is the clear implication of what I'm saying. That if Deneen praises somebody, that should dictate our foreign policy. How does that even enter into your thinking? Seriously. And how am I supposed to, as a host, people say you should be nice to the audience. Sometimes I get cantankerous with the audience, but is that a ridiculous question, or is it just me? Is there anything I said that implied that? The point I'm trying to get at is to show a pattern of what this guy is. Then we can decide whether we should be siding with him. Now, if you are a big supporter of Deneen, if you are a big supporter of nationalism, if you're a big anti-immigrant person, if you like crackdowns on the media and crackdowns on LGBTQ, then perhaps you'd like this stuff. But we're trying to identify what they are recognizing, what they are praising. Yes, Ian Gilmore, the reason why he praises a country are relevant. So you've got a country with the 17th largest economy, despite being 13th in terms of population. So they're not a very prosperous country, but yet we're over there supporting them. I personally, so if you're a supporter of Orbán being a check on the EU, that's fine. So do that. I say no because I prefer to have a country that's credible when it criticizes other strongmen or other dictatorships, other authoritarians out there. Because once you start cozying with these people, then your credibility is shot. That's my perspective as somebody committed to reason, committed to freedom, committed to capitalism. That's what I want. That's what I want to advocate. And, here's the thing that really irks me about this whole thing. It's just one thing that really irks me. I like numbers. Curiosity. If somebody were to ask you your political philosophical affiliation, what would you say? Like, what would you say describes you as a philosophical political person? Now, if you come out and say objectivism, libertarianism, anything like that, I would say stop. Like, what is the point of doing that? Just identify as a conservative Republican or as a populist and move on. I mean, what is the point of claiming one thing while advocating another? Objectivism touts principles, anti-pragmatism. Trump, Realpolitik. The two don't mesh. They just don't mesh. I mean, I don't know. A right-leaning liberty movement. I don't even know what the hell that means. Right-leaning. I mean, with what? What are your principles? Well, I mean, obviously the principles are absent because you're favoring the realpolitik pragmatism that was indicative of Kissinger, Metternich, etc. I don't like catering to authoritarians. I don't like buttering them up. Especially not when on one hand we're hearing how we have to take out this authoritarian regime in Iran, but we're going to side with the Saudis and we're going to cozy up to Orbán and we're going to allow a former Al-Qaeda member to take over Syria. This doesn't hold for me. Let's see. Let's see what you got. So the quote I was looking for from Deneen, it's just unarguably the case that whatever it is they accuse someone like Viktor Orbán of doing, the progressive left, of course, in America, it is quite clear these conditions apply in immeasurably more effect to the American system. Yeah, okay. So this morning, somebody... I don't want to ally with it. See, I'm just going to get to this. Save that quote right there on your mind, Persephone. What about our alliance with the EU authoritarians? Somebody this morning actually said in response to something that I posted, oh, well, yeah, well, how about Obama? And then told somebody else, oh, your party. And first of all, I hated Obama. Secondly, he hasn't been in office for 10 years. But the tribalism just automatically goes to, oh, yeah, well, what about this? Right? So then he tells somebody else in the thread, oh, the party you belong to supports this, 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 and this. I'm like, dude, literally nobody in this thread is a Democrat. But you assume that. So if I say to you I don't want to side with authoritarians, I mean any authoritarians. Now, you're claiming that there's EU authoritarians, then tell me who they are. Tell me their authoritarian policies. If they're truly authoritarian, I don't want to side with them. I'm also a non-interventionist and I'm opposed to foreign aid. So I don't know what, I can't even compute this. Right? Yes, Akira Felix. Orbán is not woke, and that's all that matters. Okay. I don't want to side with authoritarians. Period. What's left... what's left out of the analysis, right? So does Orbán. I mean, yes, if you're arresting people for social media posts, I'm opposed to that. So, okay. And I assume you're talking about Germany specifically. Okay, so in all the talk, I'm going to step in it in this one. In all the talk about Iran, the horrible, barbaric, murderous regime in Iran, what about the fact that our government sided with an authoritarian ruler in Iran in 1953? What about when we gave him asylum? I mean, is that just irrelevant to the equation? I don't want to side with authoritarians. I don't want to have a president who's an authoritarian. I don't want presidents, Congress, whomever, who violate the Constitution. That's what we currently have. So you could say to me, well, okay, but this is the current situation, so we have to deal with it. Fair. But how the hell do we get out of it? Do we get out of it by continually defending it, advocating for it? I don't think so. I think what we do is argue for principles, understand that we don't live in a world right now, where my principles are implemented. But how the hell could they ever get implemented if I just shut up and say, yes, go side with dictators and side with authoritarians? Doesn't seem to work for me. Persephone, what do you have to say about all of this? You're sitting there and I'm just running my mouth.
This is what I mean when I said, my day was going fine right up until I started reading all of these articles, because it's just tiring. There's It does a little bit feel like there's not really any real rhyme or reason for the things that these people do, and it's all just whatever serves them best in the moment. And there's no real driving principles. It's just whatever's gonna give us more power, whatever's gonna ingratiate us to our base, and it just creates stupid shit. Also, Akira, what do you mean the European Union doesn't have freedom of speech? I'm very curious. Because the EU does have freedom of expression with certain limits on, like, hate speech.
My brain is going to crack in a second. I don't understand why, when I ask a question, it didn't happen here. I'm just looking at Facebook. If I ask a question, why people can't just answer the question instead of getting into tangents and bringing in their tribalist crap and all that.
Because they don't actually have an answer. They have talking points. They have feelings. They have emotions. They have what they want to be true. If you ask them like an actual question, you're challenging something in them that is not their mind or their principles. You're challenging their identity, and the response to you challenging their identity isn't to, like, happily engage with the thought. It's just to defend themselves.
How is a limit on freedom of speech? I don't know. I've lost the narrative here. I don't know what's happening.
Oh, we're talking about the European Union and freedom of speech. And
okay, from what I understand, that they have severe limitations on freedom of speech in some parts of Europe. I don't know which parts. I'm not an expert on Europe. We can do a show on it. I've heard a lot about the cracking down. The question, I guess, then becomes is when does a leader become authoritarian? As far as I know, though, we don't have presidential candidates going over to, well, maybe they did already. Maybe they do go over there and campaign for their people.
Wouldn't this be such a wonderful moment to segue into the new Florida
Yes.
thing?
That would be a good segue.
For
I wish you
anybody
would have
who
said it a little earlier, so I would have been on there. But I can go. Get
I
the
am so
actual-
sorry. For
No, it's
anybody
not your
who
fault. It's all right.
For anybody who is interested, the articles for today are already available on the website if you would like to go and take a look. It's thecapitalistcorner.org.
Okay. So the article in Reason says Ron DeSantis clamps down on free speech in the name of fighting terror. I read in addition to the article, I read the entire law that should be in the reading as well. It says it broadens the state's terrorism laws, has civil liberties groups worried about the future of free speech in the Sunshine State. Florida Governor DeSantis signed HB 1471 into law Monday. It goes into effect July 1st, and it limits Florida. It increases accountability, the claim is, at Florida's public universities by prohibiting the use of taxpayer funds to support or promote terrorist organizations. It also allows some state officials to label certain groups as domestic or foreign terror organizations. And once a group is designated as a terror organization, it would become subject to strict prohibitions, including bans on public funding and support. And individuals who provide material support face significant criminal penalties. Some of the things that are worried about this. Well, first of all, I'll tell you the problem that I have with it. They have this guy I don't know if it's a guy. I just said guy. It's called the Chief of Domestic Security. So if the Chief of Domestic Security is to designate domestic and foreign terror groups, and it has to be approved by the governor and, with the governor's cabinet. And then there's a lot of restrictions that come down on people if they support or promote the views of these domestic terrorists. So without getting into too much of it, the main issue that I have with this stuff, and everybody can just read the stuff if they want to take a deep dive. But my main issue is you've got this chief domestic guy who's part of the Florida law enforcement agency. And he's going to designate. So it's designated by a single guy, and then it's got to be approved by the governor and the cabinet. The governor and the cabinet are likely in cahoots together, right? They're likely aligned. And if the person that does the designation is also aligned, then there's not a real check on this. It's also not exactly objective when they say if you promote, what does promote mean? It's
vague.
It's a very vague term. They do attempt to. They also, I saw this in the Florida Constitution. It provides that religious freedom shall not justify practices inconsistent with public morals. I'm not a big fan of that, but when you have one person or group of people that gets to designate people as terrorists, so I want to put this. It's dangerous, but let me put this in as what I think this is really about. There's a big uproar. A lot of people on the right are very concerned about Sharia law being implemented here in America, so they want to make sure that doesn't happen. I do too. I don't want that to happen. Most of the stuff I read in this law, it seemed to me, would already be illegal if you're lending support to groups that are physically harming other people. If you're really lending them support, not saying that you agree with them or such thing, but I mean, really giving them material support. That seems to me already an issue. So they're against this Sharia law being implemented. And also, I think they want to crack down on protests on university campuses. They don't want students protesting, for instance, in favor of Hamas. They want to crack down on that, I'm sure. And of course, they want to crack down on the left teaching this stuff in schools. So now this gives them kind of the route to do it. So you could start with something like, okay, I don't think that anybody should be practicing Sharia law in the United States. Not legally, you know what I mean? If a community, whatever, that's a different story, as long as they're not violating rights and killing people or some such thing. And you start with something like, well, supporting Hamas is bad, and we don't want teachers teaching to support groups like Hamas. And people will say, yeah, I think that's pretty reasonable. But at what point are you supporting? At what point are you promoting? And at what point are you just infringing on people's freedom of speech? And beyond that, to me, the real argument, the real problem here is that government money goes to these organizations to begin with. If the government were to stop funding schools, stop funding colleges, then we wouldn't have the issue of we're going to deprive them of public money for these things, for this so-called support. In government, whenever they're given a power, it seems, it always goes beyond the immediate what they're going to do. I mean, just look at the Department of Homeland Security. Founded, is created as a response to 9/11, ends up with, they're investigating and arresting drug dealers. They're involved with the war on drugs. And who knows what else? I mean, probably an abundance of other things as well, but it never sticks to what it's going for. So you may think, okay, this is going to be at the directed right towards these Islamic extremist groups that we dislike. Next thing you know, somebody says, I support, I like the Hells Angels, or, I support the mafia, whatever. I mean, I'm making up ridiculous things, but when you have government with a power, they then can come after you.
Yeah.
And that is a very big problem. So I encourage everybody to read the material, read the stuff. I think that this is a threat to free speech for the reasons. Let me really succinctly put this. I think it's dangerous to give the authority to designate the groups as terrorist organizations to this one guy in the group. The chief, and whatever the hell he is, domestic law guy, and then
Chief of Domestic Security.
yeah, chief of domestic security, and the governor and his cabinet. I think if you're going to do that type of thing, it should go through the legislature. That's the first thing. But secondly, once you give that kind of power, it's bound to grow. It's not going to stay where it is. I'm unclear exactly what it means to promote these things. It's ripe or rife, whatever, ripe. It is ripe. We'll go with ripe if I'm wrong. Nah. It is ripe for the type of abuses that we've seen, for instance, when Donald Trump is designating various groups as terrorist organizations.
Yeah.
Same principle, same problem. Okay, Persephone, you go ahead now.
It's ripe for and rife with. Just
all right.
out
Yeah,
of interest.
rife means like full of problems.
Yeah. So this was another one. This was another article that just made me. So this has always been America's big thing, right? From a country who does have hate speech laws, you can go to jail for saying naughty words. This has always been America's big thing, is that you guys have freedom of speech. This is so dangerous. Just from the outside looking in, it is so dangerous to just be able to say, well, I think that these people are a terrorist organization. I don't really have any proof, but yeah, you're a terrorist organization now. And if anybody supports them, it's dangerous, and it just feels like the beginning of like a 1984 novel. It feels like the beginning of 1984. I was going to say an Orwell novel, and then I said the name instead. That's what it feels like. And it put this all together. Yay, authoritarianism. Who cares about free speech? And everybody's cheering all the way. And it's just depressing.
And it makes that noise you just made?
It does, because how are you supposed to have any optimism when the country that is like the free speech, the last bastion of free speech, is like, actually, you know what? Fuck free speech.
Okay, so we have a bromance developing here in the chat between Chandler and Akira. They're smiling. Akira says Chandler's cute. I hung out with Chandler for a little while. I didn't find him to be too adorable. Fun to hang out with, but you know. But either way, yeah, I feel like there's a part of me that feels like we didn't give this article enough attention. The problem is when you read a bill, legal bills are ridiculous with their clauses and subclauses and we're replacing this section and this subsection. But the gist of it is that this the domestic jerk off has the authority to identify certain groups, and they do give criteria. You know, he's able to identify certain groups as being terrorist organizations, and then anybody who is caught supporting them, primarily in terms of the public schools, universities, private schools, whatever, who's in any way endorsing these people or supporting these people, is going to face consequences. That's the gist of it.
Yeah. And if you consider that they've always phrase things correctly. If you consider that a lot of people say that colleges and universities are the breeding ground of like leftist ideology, the fact that they want to clamp down on free speech specifically in those places, it reeks. It reeks to me. It's not about terrorism. It's not about protecting anybody. It's about stopping the spread of ideas that they don't like. Whether those ideas are actually good or not is not the point.
I'm with you. And we're suffering from an extreme dearth of super chats and super stickers today.
It's because the topics are so depressing. No one wants to give money to people who just bring them all this depressing news.
What are you supposed to do? I mean, look,
say something positive.
I mean, what do you want me to say? I like this shirt I got.
Very nice shirt. Beautiful shirt. Great color.
I'll give a little Iran news. I do regular. I'm looking for regular updates on the thing. There wasn't a lot, but so yesterday, Claude told me there's a fragile ceasefire, and it went through all this stuff that it was telling me Israel's doing this, blah blah blah, Iran, da da da, and it says it's fragile. I said it says, but there is no direct fighting between the U.S. and Iran. So then I said, okay. I said, let me see if I can summarize this, Claude, and tell me if I'm wrong. Basically, what you're telling me is the United States has stopped bombing Iran, but Iran is still attacking everybody else. And it said that's a very astute observation. Yes, that's what's occurring. So, I shouldn't laugh. It's terrible, but it's just so fucking ridiculous.
It's not funny. But also, thank you for, I asked for positive news, and you were like, here's the least positive news I could possibly give you.
Well, Enchantador says we're one day closer to Christmas. I think that's your husband, no?
It is my husband.
Yeah. Is he an Enchantador?
He is very enchanting.
All right. I don't know. I've never met the guy. Perhaps he is. So that's a good thing, I guess. I don't know. All right. Let me find this, what I'm looking for here. Okay, so this asshole here, Matt Walsh. Did I need that?
No, I'm sorry. It's just you said Matt Walsh, and I thought about the tweet, and then I thought about the rest of it, and it just made me angry.
Okay. So he says, I am totally radicalized on the issue of criminal justice. We should increase executions by 1,000%. Bring back hard labor. Bring back corporal punishment. Bring back public lashings. Bring back public hangings. Our ancestors were right about all of that. This asshole doesn't know his, I was going to say his balls, but maybe he doesn't have any. He doesn't know what the hell he's talking about is the real problem. So let's just, first of all. What?
He also followed up by saying, we let communist psychiatrists and academics, but I repeat myself, take over the justice system. People who have no understanding of human nature.
Okay.
Yeah, psychiatrists and academics have no understanding of human nature.
Well, some don't. A lot.
Godless pervert heathens who reject natural law and the very concept of justice.
Okay, you're going farther. Okay, but that's his follow-up. Can we wait till it's your turn and then you can get to that? Right now, you're just jumping ahead. You see what I'm talking about? I mean, this is where people say that women are taking over everything. Okay. Anyway, so the fact of the matter is, colonial early America comparison, violent crime during the colonial period was likely 3 times higher than the highest modern rates in the available data, and crime had been on a general decline since colonial times. So the era of public hanging and floggings was also an era of dramatically more violence, not less. The 19th century West, the period most associated with harsh frontier justice, had homicide rates that were extraordinarily high by today's standards and by the standards the rest of the United States and the Western world in the 19th century. Violent crime is actually down considerably. Robert Naser has given us, I got to find it now. He says, for $5, thank you very much, Robert. Matt Walsh has the Midas touch. Everything he touches turning into a muffler. It's exhausting. He's just the worst. Thank you very, very much. So I sent you some stuff, and we'll put it out there. So I want to talk about a couple of things here. First of all, the idea of punishment and deterrence. So there's 2 types of deterrence, right, in the literature. There's general and specific. General deterrence means that if there's a given policy, right, it like, say there's a punishment. It's known that you're going to be flogged if you tell Persephone off on the show. That will deter people broadly from telling Persephone off. That's the argument. The problem is it's ultimately impossible to know for certain how many people are deterred because by definition they are deterred. They're not committing crimes. So you'd have to figure the bulk of people aren't going to commit crimes anyway. So it stands to reason in my mind that there are people on the margins who might be inclined to commit crimes who don't because of the deterrent factor. So that's general deterrence. The evidence on that, the evidence is mixed, but we do tend to know that it generally works. Specific deterrence means applied to a specific person. So if you punish me, I will be deterred from committing future crimes. The evidence for that is not very good. Part of the problem, as we're discussing, by the way, in our show at 3:15, is the criminal personality. Criminals tend not to learn from experience very well. They are not rational actors. They're very, they lack time perspective. So the specific deterrents don't work well. Punishments, harsh punishments, actually are correlated with more crime, not less. What does deter and what is better is if somebody is certain they're going to get caught. So certainty of punishment is more important than degree of the punishment, which is why if you're in a prison system, as we talked about the other day on crime, corrections, and culture, you don't want to be letting criminals get away with everything because they need to understand that there's an immediate consequence for what they do. It can't be every 15th time he does something, he gets caught. Or there's a punishment. It has to be certain. Also, going back to the 70s, there was a guy named Robert Martinson, and he's famous for a paper in which it's been summarized as Nothing Works, where he said nothing works to rehabilitate criminals. And, a lot of people bought onto that on both sides of the aisle. Liberals, the progressives really didn't like the idea of rehabilitation programs because they basically said that you're trying to foist your Western ideals onto people. You're trying to, make people live the way that you want to, adopt your values and blah, blah, blah. Conservatives loved it because then they got to say, okay, what we need are harsher penalties and harsher crimes. So it really caught on. Fact of the matter was it was bullshit. The studies that he did were not very well done. And there's a monumental amount of research since that demonstrates that there are things that can work to help drop recidivism, i.e. to rehabilitate or, if you will, habilitate reform offenders. We're going to get into that in a moment, but I want to just say one more thing and give Persephone a chance. It is true, obviously, if you remove criminals from the street, that you're going to be taking somebody off the street who can't commit a crime. So if you were literally to lock up every criminal, you would have no crime. That stands to reason. The problem is 95% of criminals, I believe, last time I looked, it was around 95, are getting out. They're not doing life sentences. The other thing is it's very, very expensive if you're going to lock everybody up and keep everybody in prison, whereas the rehabilitation programs are actually cost effective. It also goes against the principles of a free society. I want to say it was Dostoevsky, but it might have been de Tocqueville. Look this up for me, Persephone. I think it was actually, it says you can judge a civilization by the way that the way criminals are treated in the civilization, right? It's just, it flows against justice. It flows against common sense. It goes against our traditions in this country of what we're trying to do. As far as the classical liberal Enlightenment vision. And it just doesn't work. So who said it, by the way they treat their criminals? Was it Dostoevsky or de Tocqueville? I can't remember.
It was Dostoevsky. A society should be judged not by how it treats its outstanding citizens, but by how it treats its criminals.
Okay, so yeah, and I think there's some truth to that. That if you want to live in a civilized country, if you want to teach people to be civilized, you don't do that by brutalizing them. So before we get into the actual effective programs, Persephone, what do you want to say now about your own take on all this, and also Bye, Nicole. Also,
Bye.
the follow-up with Walsh.
Okay, so Walsh said, I'm radicalized on the blah. Then
Yes.
he said, we let communists, psychiatrists, and academics. I love how he groups those three together.
Yeah.
Take over the justice system. People who have no understanding of human nature. Why do psychiatrists and academics not have any understanding of human nature, but Matt Walsh does? And then he said, godless pervert heathens who reject natural law and the very concept of justice. We need to get all of these freaks out of the system, reject everything they say on the topic of crime and punishment, and get back to arresting evil people and making them suffer for their crimes. I mean, how can you take anything seriously from a man who says you shouldn't trust academics or psychiatrists on their knowledge of human behavior? Like, how does that not tip you off to, like, maybe this is not the right person to be listening to? Because essentially what he's saying is don't trust the experts, trust me, trust Sky Daddy to tell you what to do.
Sky Daddy?
Sky Daddy?
Is that what you call the Enchantador?
No, but this feels so basic to me that if someone is telling you don't trust the experts, I know more, or my corporation knows more, my people know more than the experts. If someone is saying that to you, they are lying.
Well, okay. So first of all, if somebody says be skeptical of experts, I can go with that to an
Yes.
extent. But when
Yes.
you put the second part that says, but trust me or trust Sky Daddy, as you call him,
Yeah.
that's a different story. Also, people will point to, but look how bad wrong the experts got, and they'll give their example. But there's experts in a lot of different fields for which that's not the case. Like when you go to your doctor, for instance, or you go to a car mechanic, or you go to a fancy restaurant and have a chef cook you a meal. You don't say, hey, I don't trust this expert chef. Let me go get Joey from the fucking neighborhood over here and let him cook me up a steak, with good potatoes and a nice salad or whatever. You want to have people who know what they're doing. And there has been, I think, I'm not going to say just trust all the experts, but at the same time, I'm not going to say trust Matt Walsh either.
Yeah, so Kira says, to be fair, if you listen to some of those psychologists he's referring to, you kind of see his point. The problem is when he asks tribesmen and takes them as an authority.
Well,
Yeah,
I agree.
again.
I've criticized plenty of psychologists and plenty of psychiatrists, and I think that there's a valid point. Because there's a valid point of some psychologists, even if you want to say it's the most, that doesn't then take an indictment of the profession and then replace the profession with Matt Walsh. That to me is the issue. So, by and large, for this topic on criminal justice, a lot of the topics I don't know about, so I won't just rely on AI. I will, read the source material. When it comes to this, I know enough to be able to judge whether the AI was correct or not. I just wanted to have something that I can give you really to read in the audience. And by and large, the AI was correct. The one thing it did not do with the ChatGPT is when I asked it for the evidence-based programs, what actually rehabilitates offenders, it said this is what has been shown to do it. It didn't rank it. In other words, it didn't say this is what works best, this second, this third. It just kind of lumped it all in together. So the primary approach that has worked is based on it's called the risk-need responsivity model. The risk is who is at risk of becoming an offender. Needs is what are they also have specific and generalized needs of the offender. And what, not needs. Responsivity is general and specific. General is what criminals as a whole will respond to, and specific means tailored to the specific offender. And what they've found over and over again is that cognitive behavioral therapy addressed to what they call criminological needs tends to reduce recidivism when it's directed toward the most serious offenders. Why? Why the most serious offenders? Because if you're directing your programs not at the most serious offenders who are likely to recidivate, but against some other guys who aren't likely to recidivate, you're not going to lower recidivism, generally speaking. So they use cognitive behavioral therapy to address these criminogenic needs. Persephone, I didn't put this up. Can you look up criminogenic needs and then get a summary and share it with the audience? So criminogenic needs, there's first you have to know there's something called criminogenic risk factors. And criminogenic risk factors come in static and dynamic. Static risk factors are things that cannot ever go away. So static risk factors for offending are being a male. You can't change that. Your age, you can't change that. How many previous offenses you've had. These are all indicators that you're going to be a criminal, but none of them are changeable. The dynamic risk factors are what they call criminogenic needs. And the criminogenic needs are like antisocial attitudes, values, and beliefs. They are antisocial friends, lack of education. All those things are changeable. So when you use cognitive behavioral therapy and address it to the attitudes, values, and beliefs of offenders, and you get them to actually alter the way that they think, then you can bring down recidivism and you can lead to some rehabilitation or rehabilitation. A big problem, and none of the stuff that I had here really addresses this. Well, it does kind of. But in order for any of that to work, the environment needs to be conducive to it. So if you're in a prison situation, and really you need to tune into our criminal justice show, 3:15 p.m. Eastern on Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, is you have to have an environment. So you can't have a guy, he goes to a program, like I used to run a program in prison. And we would teach things like integrity, honesty, values, personal responsibility, that sort of thing. Then the guy goes back to the prison block. He sees this one CO's asleep at the desk. The other one's eating a sandwich, playing on his cell phone, and another one's having an inappropriate conversation with inmates. You have most of the rules that are never enforced. He sees that the guys who break the rules are getting away with murder. That environment is not conducive to learning the lessons that are being taught in the programs. So you need to have an environment that's conducive to this. And I read years ago, that 1 in 10 correctional facilities in America is conducive to this sort of thing. They also, I want to say it was 100, but I could be wrong on this. It was, maybe it was 177. It was somewhere in there. It was a lot. They asked them, correctional practitioners, to identify 3 criminogenic needs. These are the people that are entrusted with the rehabilitation mechanism. None of them could identify 3. I tried this myself, and I asked a correctional rehabilitation counselor, an addiction counselor, if he could do it, and he could not. So it's a very, very serious problem. Akira Felix doesn't have Twitter, but he can go on the Patreon.
Yeah,
he can. Stuff, right?
He can go on the Patreon. Oh, also, yes, if you go to the Everyday Ethics Patreon, which is patreon.com/everydayethics, we've posted the 10 criminal thinking errors from Down the Rabbit Hole, which is what we discussed yesterday on crime, corrections, and culture.
Yes, importantly, those are from Dr. Samenow and Yokelson, and with some input from Dr. Glenn Walters. They're similar but not exact to the criminogenic needs. And also, just to clarify, in Down the Rabbit Hole, I had never yet read some of the books that I now have subsequently read, What Works and What Doesn't in Reducing Recidivism, and The Psychology of Criminal Conduct, which is the seminal text in the field. And so when Brent and I mentioned the criminogenic thinking needs, which we had heard, the criminogenic needs, we thought there was a good chance that they were impacted by Samenow and Yokelson. It does not seem that they were. It just seems that they're very similar because people identified the same problems and patterns.
Yeah.
All right, Persephone, go ahead. What do you got to say?
About what? Oh, you know what I thought was interesting?
The weather in South Africa.
The weather in South Africa sucks right now. So, in the grok rundown that you sent is the fact that certainty, the perceived probability of apprehension, is a stronger influence on behavior than the severity of the punishment. Because it just made me think about what we spoke about yesterday, which was a couple of things, like super, I guess, kind of like super optimism, and
Yeah.
also like lack of. It makes sense that a criminal would be more deterred by, like, I'm almost definitely going to get caught, rather than, well, if I do get caught, then they're going to like chop my hands off, because they don't think that they're going to get caught. Akira, shut your mouth.
No, she's gonna today though.
No, she's not.
She is.
No, she's not.
No, she is. If she's demanding that she be a part of the show, she's going to give the capitalist thought of the day. If we're going to have equal rights between men and women, Persephone is giving the capitalist thought of the day today. First, we're going to go. Look, you asked a question yesterday. Think about what you want to say, Persephone. I want to go to yesterday. Yeah, that's right. James does it every time he's on the show.
How long has James been reading? Versus, I just want everybody to think about the fact that I'm new, and also I'm a woman, so this feels sexist.
But you're pretty.
Thank you.
Capitalism is good. Yes, see that? That's all you got to say. I want to find where we went over some of these questions yesterday. I don't know what's happening here.
Good.
Capitalist Corner. No, I'm going to find it, Persephone. Don't you worry your pretty little head off. Persephone asked yesterday about animals or dinosaurs or some such question. But Persephone always gets a lot of answers. So Zardaz CYS says special interest as a child was computers, model building, and figuring out what caused countries to go to war and how to keep freedom alive. When you were 4? When I finally found Rand's essays on the roots of war and man's rights, they were the solution to a lifelong quest. Robert Nasser says, the same as my eventual profession, electronics and computers, but also my hobby professions, philosophy and guitars, keyboards, and music. What kind? I thought you were talking about little kids when you asked this question.
I was when kids are younger, they tend to have things that they're very into. So I was
all right. So Jenna Kleem says her special interest was animals. Akira Felix says he hated dinosaurs and space. He was 5 years old when 9/11 happened, and all he did after that was watch documentaries about war. And then you got some stuff about Israel, and Israel should take out bridges and power stations that the U.S. was threatening to do. All right, are you ready for the capitalist thought of the day?
Yeah, I'm gonna just copy. I'm just gonna copy something that I wrote in one of the blogs. So I feel like it's a good capitalist thought of the day.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm actually legit just gonna read this because I don't think anybody's read this blog, and I think
I got a
good.
better idea. I want you to talk about how embracing the overall philosophy of capitalism has impacted your life personally.
How capitalism is how embracing capitalism.
How learning these philosophical ideas that are around capitalism, how have they impacted your life personally?
Learning about capitalism and embracing this philosophy has made me overall a happier person. I like to think it's made me a better friend, weirdly. It's made me feel like I have a lot more power in my own life. It just makes me feel more in control, and it makes me feel less like the world is a nightmare hellscape, which I was struggling with about 2 or 3 years ago. And now I don't really feel that way anymore.
Awesome,
great.
Persephone. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for that. My question to the audience is going to be this. We did a little discussion about some stuff referring to criminal justice today. Would you like to see us discuss that topic more often on the show? So go to YouTube and answer the question. Would you like us to discuss topics related to criminal justice more often? I thank everybody for being here today. If you want to see a discussion of criminal justice, you can actually tune in today to this very channel, 3:15 p.m. Eastern Time, Crime, Corrections, and Culture. And don't forget 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, where we will be doing Everyday Ethics, and we're doing our special series of exposing grifters. I don't know how much exposing we're doing because people generally know they're grifters, but we are discussing them. So until tomorrow, when I believe Mark Pellegrino, today's birthday boy, happy birthday again, Mark, I believe he will be back tomorrow. Until then, please check your